So the Culture Club tour kicks off this weekend with Belinda Carlisle and Tom Bailey. I'm very happy to say that Tom is joining me now. How are you, Tom?
I'm very good, thanks, and ready to go.
How are you feeling right now, just a couple of days before the start of the tour?
Well, I'm not too frightened, actually, because we've been doing it all year. So I just did, I think, 65 dates with George and Culture Club in America, so, which is an enormous undertaking. But one thing that happens is you find out whether you can do it or not, and so I'm feeling pretty confident, although I've got a slight change in lineup in the band, so I'm rehearsing tonight.
How do you feel about the response from your fans? Because not only have you got fans from your solo work, and you've got a new album which we'll come on to in a moment, but of course you've got the fans that are with you right from day one, from the late 70s right up to now, because obviously you started Thompson Twins back in the late 70s and had that massive success in the 80s. Do you feel quite humble about the people's reactions, because they're quite passionate, aren't they, your loyal fans?
It's a big emotional reconnection, so actually that's the reason I do it, to be honest, and a feeling that we can kind of re-invoke a slight sense of rebelliousness, but also optimism about, like, in the 80s we still believe that you could use the music to change the world for a better, and I like to kind of remind us and everyone else of that fact, and it is still there, I think, amongst that generation of fans. And hopefully, because there's also some kind of younger faces in the audience, hopefully they pick up on that as well. Okay, I'm going to complain now. I think that in a way pop music has lost that sense of rebelliousness. It's all a little bit kind of ticking the boxes and writing by committee, to get social media likes and all. It doesn't really carry the flag and the raised fist of rebellion anymore. We're going to make the world a better place. So that's what I'm looking for in music still. And that's what I get at these concerts. And there's also a very kind of warm feeling of, do you remember?
I think bands need to have that rebellious streak, and I'm so pleased that you said that, because you must feel like you did when you first started. Is it the same feeling?
Yeah, it was kind of risk-laden, really. We were putting our necks on the block every day, and so it's a pity when you see things that are just kind of eternally in a kind of comfort zone of marketing. And I'm so rude about modern music, but that's the way I see it. I think it's a pity that has gone. And in a way, it's no one's fault, because I think the exciting stuff has moved into the internet, and that's and rock and roll used to be the uncontrollable, uncontainable beast. And guess what? They contained it somehow.
Have you had to adapt with the social media as well then?
I'm absolutely useless, so I leave that to other people and make a kind of pathetic attempt once in a while myself. But for me, it's not really about that. I don't want to tell people, here's a picture of what I just ate, and I had a nice night down the pub with my mates. It's just, to me, that's not. I'd rather keep a sense of mystery.
Mystery is good. I was talking to Mike Lee, director Mike Lee, about that, and he wouldn't tell me what he was doing next. And I think that's great, because I think the more you know about something, the less of a surprise it is.
Well, back in the early days of the Twins, we used to have this obsession with kind of all that, like, audience participation. We'd hand instruments and get everyone playing, which is a great thing. But it really came good for us when we said, we don't want to demystify everything. Let's remystify it. And we actually put people behind screens and had people playing electronic instruments that you couldn't see what they were doing. And for some reason, it just kind of made it magic again. Like, people don't want to go and see something ordinary and doable. They want to see something that's completely amazing that you couldn't do yourself.
So are you a punk? Because obviously you started in 1977, I think, wasn't it, in the late 70s?
Well, I think punk got me. Punk opened the door that I snuck in without the credentials, really. But for me, it's not just about like anyone can do it. Although that was such a big, like, a political moment, was to drag it away from the people who were already millionaire rock stars and say, any kid on the block can have a go at this and maybe get on top of the pops. That was important. But ultimately, it's got to be about more than that, about more than just seeking glory.
Well, you mentioned you've played a lot of dates already, just recently, but you're relatively new to delving back into the old back catalogue, aren't you? I mean, it was, 4 years ago when you hadn't played for like nearly 30 years?
That's right. I'd been 2 or 3 decades away from pop music, at least. I've always made music, and even done concerts of one sort or another, but not pop music. So to do that again and be playing those old hits, and frankly, I thought I never would. I'd just put it behind me completely. So I kind of got seduced back over the line by a few people and ended up enjoying it. and thought, yeah, wow.
That's great. Was it because the past was quite difficult for you, or you just wanted to concentrate on your solo work?
I think I'd kind of drawn a line under it, as we all did. But the fact is, the other two twins weren't really... They didn't stay in the music business, whereas I did. And that's all I really do is make music. So it's felt at some point perfectly natural to kind of be retrospective and say, ooh, let's look at what we were doing 30 years ago and see if it works now. Yeah. So for me, that's become an interesting thing. The only missing ingredient, and we'll come on to that, it was I needed kind of new songs as well.
So Boy George has already quoted that this tour is filled with hits and fabulous memories. I just want to know what your memories are of that period, obviously the early to mid 80s when you had the huge success with the band.
Well, I think he's talking about the audience's memories more than the artist, because it happens to us all that the music that's playing when we first break the rules, when we become adults, when we stay out all night, when we get a little bit too high, when we make love and all those kind of things, whatever music's playing at that point becomes something that's fixed in our consciousness. So it just brings the memories thundering back. So if you were a kid in the 80s, basically, is what you're saying, it's bound to have that enormous effect. For me, it was probably a little bit earlier. The 70s music, was the stuff that turned me on. But that's how it works, right? Music has this power to kind of evoke a powerful nostalgia and take you back to being wide-eyed and optimistic again.
Because it was such a visual time as well. I mean, you were right in the middle of, MTV era. You had to obviously make a promo video and be very visual, and you were very visual because you had that cartoon element as well with the logo and everything else, and you dressed brilliantly. How do you look back at that image, especially?
Well, it was the 80s, wasn't it?
It was the 80s.
But the thing is, it was partly a technological thing. For the first time, we got our hands on cheap polyphonic synthesizers and drum machines. But the other bit of kit, of course, was the video camera that suddenly became kind of available then. Yeah. And so we're all at it. We suddenly saw the power of... And this is the thing where we beat the Americans to it, right? Because the Americans in the 80s, early 80s anyway, were still caught up in wanting to be kind of rock and roll gods with guitars, whereas we were suddenly into this whole knob-twiddling electronic thing, and we beat them to it. And I think a little bit of English eccentricity got us over the line as well.
So did you embrace it then? Did you embrace the technology?
Totally, yeah. That was the magic moment for me. I could never afford a synthesizer until that moment. Then I pounced on it, and everything changed for me. And visually, the equivalent thing happened. And I think also, things like MTV started, so they were looking for that kind of quirky, weird thing from over there, and they got it. They found us, So,
well, a lot of my friends at school had the rat's tail, and I hold you responsible for that.
Okay, sorry about that one. It even became dangerous. Someone, it became a national sport trying to cut it off the back of my head, and in the end, I decided to preempt that by cutting it off myself, rather than get stabbed by a pair of scissors.
And of course, 1985. Madonna joining you on stage for Live Aid. What a massive event that was too. Live
Aid, of course, and it was an example of that optimism. We still thought that it was worth having a go at making the world a better place. That's what, if there's anything rebellious still in what I do, it's trying to re-evoke that feeling. But Madonna, it was just one of those kind of, we'll sing on your set, you can sing on ours, and yeah, why not?
Was it quite random then, in that respect?
Yeah.
It was.
we're part of the same circle because we were making an album with Nile Rodgers at the time. Yeah. He'd just done the Like a Virgin album, I think. So we were just part of the same New York kind of musicians and singers and songwriters gang. So it was perfect. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time.
It wasn't. So it wasn't nerve-wracking for you
to work with Madonna.
To have her with you.
Absolutely no way. She was just a kid,
Yeah.
But what did happen was I was backstage with her. This is a funny story actually, and some fans kind of saw us. Hey, Madonna! So I said, let's just go in here and get out of the way. And I opened a door and went by accident into the room where they were taking the official photographs. And in that room, I remember was Mick Jagger and a few other Stones, Tina Turner, Bob Dylan.
That's pretty nerve-wracking.
And basically, I was completely starstruck and reversed out of that situation, and Madonna kept going. So that's the difference between me and Madonna.
Have you seen her since?
A couple of times, yeah.
Do you kind of talk about that time, or is it just...
No.
You get on with your own thing?
Yes.
We have to talk about the new album, and I believe it's your first solo album as well.
It isn't really, but it's my first solo pop album.
Right.
I've done plenty of record releases, but they're all experimental or of a certain kind. I do dub music and electronic and even Indian classical music and things like that. But I hadn't touched the 3-minute, 15-second pop song for a while. So when I decided that the thing that was missing from my live shows was a contemporary challenge, then I started writing songs, and one thing leads to another. You end up with an album, and I say, well, let's finish it off and put it out. So that's what we've done. Because there's a particular skill in being concise, getting your ideas into that short time, but still have it be foot tapping and sing alongable and about something. That's the other important thing. Can't just be vacuous, So that became the challenge, and I love it actually. It's like it's like meeting an old friend for me. So
it's science fiction. Can you explain the title of the album? Why you chose that title?
Well, I realised that I was starting to write thematically that a lot of the songs had kind of stargazing, looking up at the skies, thinking about the cosmos, the universal concept. And I liked that because, when you do look up at the sky and you start to wonder about this, that and the other, it brings a kind of philosophical atmosphere to your thinking. You start thinking about the big questions, all right? So it's a good trick to write about those kind of things, because then you can end up talking about anything, anything important. Eventually I wrote science fiction, and I thought, yeah, that's it. That's the album title, because it covers all of these stargazing ideas. And although I'm not a particular fan of science fiction as a genre in writing or in film, the thing I love about it, the conceit of it, is that you write about the future in order to understand the present. And that's such a brilliant idea. All science fiction is about now, not about the future.
And you're not really kind of restricted either, because it's such an endless opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah. You can go to Mars, yeah.
So you have a new single from this album. I wanted to ask you about the process, not just of writing and producing, but also how the music industry works now, because of course it's very different with the industry compared to way back late 70s and on.
My God, it's all changed, hasn't it? I mean, the big change for me is, I guess, well, there are so many, but one of the big changes is that whereas we used to tour and lose money in order to promote record sales, which made money, now you don't make money from records. You put them out as a kind of lost leader to get people to come along to your shows if you're lucky, So that's the truth of it. People aren't buying records in the droves that they used to. But it's still a fantastic thing to do.
And quite challenging, probably, as well, which makes it more interesting, I guess. Harder, but more interesting.
Yes, things have moved along, things have changed. The rebellion has slightly shifted somewhere else. And the other thing is that technology, again, has changed everything. I mean, now laptops are studios. So I remember back in the day, we were always waiting for that kind of three-month gap where you could get into a studio and make an album. Now you just do it as you're travelling. That means I'm always in a kind of writing frame of mind, which I really, really like. I think that's very kind of constructive and beneficial to the kind of artist process, just to be always on it, Sure.
I'd love to ask you about Debbie Harry, because I know you co-wrote and produced I Want That Man, one of her biggest hit singles here in the UK.
Yeah. It was a great thing to do. How did that happen? I guess, someone put us in touch with her, and she wanted to co-write, and we just got on, I mean, obviously I was a massive admirer of her and of Blondie and the way that they kind of rehabilitated great pop music in the late 70s. So what a thrill. And so I think we wrote several songs for her, and we recorded all of them. 3 or 4 of them made them onto her album, and that one was a hit.
What were her initial reactions to the sound of the song?
I think she just said, yeah, this is great, let's do it, kind of thing. And the thing about Debbie is, people say, it is what it says on the tin. She's totally a New York punk rocker, right? Art punk rocker. So there's no big mystery with Debbie. She's very much what she claims to be, totally genuine. Of course, she's an old lady now, but...
Very exciting. Saw her recently, and she's still got it.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, we love her.
And it's the same with the B-52s, of course, you toured with. Did you get much of a chance to see them off stage as well as on stage?
Absolutely. I made big friends with them. I've never met them before, So, yes, immediately made big friends. And they're fantastic. They're like living legends of American art rock, aren't they? So and they put on a fantastic show.
Oh my God, such a joyous show. I only saw them once a couple of years ago, and it was one of the most incredible gigs I've been to.
So yes, I'm very, very pleased with that.
So what are your thoughts for next year? Obviously you've got these shows, got a lot of shows coming up, both this tour with Culture Club and Belinda, and also next year
I think we've got some festivals already in the calendar. I can't imagine that we'll be as busy next year as we were this year, because I haven't been this busy since like 1983 or something.
Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy being busier?
It's a funny thing, isn't it? I think I can't deny that I'm a creature of the stage, so I really like doing it. And just wandering from place to place, a new town every day. It's one. I mean, the only price you pay is you never get home, So I think this summer I was home for 4 days.
It must be strange having that high of being on stage and being on tour and then coming home and it's quiet. Or is it quiet at home?
It takes a while, and then there's that thing of, 9 o'clock every night you want to jump on the kitchen table and start strutting about.
That's something for YouTube, isn't it?
And demanding fresh towels from everyone.
Is there a diva in you? Is there an inner diva?
It's a terrible thing to admit, but there probably is of some sort. So I don't know what it is. I think it's just habit of performing. And there's a high from it, which, of course, if you look at the neurology, there's all sorts of weird things going on, not least of which is a massive dopamine rush that just makes you feel great, You're totally engaged. All your neurotransmitters are firing, and the synapses are busy. So, I mean, that's you can't say no to that sometimes.
Well, you're making other people happy, which is great, isn't it?
The emotional contact is amazing,
Got a quick fire round to finish off. David McNeil in Brighton says, is there any chance of Babel albums being released on vinyl? Because obviously vinyl, there's a resurgence now.
Oh my goodness, I hadn't thought of that, but I've no idea. I have no plans to organise that, but you never know. These days there's a lot of re-releasing on good quality vinyl, so who knows?
Steve in Brighton as well. Which synth plays bass on Quickstep and Psychic?
It's all done by an Oberheim OBX-A. The entire album, not just the bass. One of the monster polyphonic synths of the early 80s.
Do you have a favourite song to play live as well? Both solo and with Thompson Twins?
I love them all, but there are the big ones where that everyone's going to sing along. And that, it goes beyond music, then it becomes a love affair.
Well, with Thompson Twins songs, they're big choruses, aren't they? So you're guaranteed to get that crowd.
Yes, and we made a lot of records, so we don't play the ones that don't work anymore. We just play the big hits from back in the day. And the crowd love it. That's one of the reasons they're there. And because of that connection, it gives you the permission to sneak in some new stuff as well.
Absolutely. Tom, it's great to see you. I wish you all the best for the tour and the new album too. Looking forward to seeing you.
You're very kind. Thank you.